Welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer, Tucker Sennett, joining you here today to talk some more about NC State's massive upset over then-ranked number 8 Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has dropped a little bit in the rankings since and are not in the opening college football playoff picture. But nonetheless, a top 10 win for this Wolfpack team, a massive moment in the season, a signature moment for Dave Doran and this program. Really couldn't have come at a better time given the noise around this program. And today, I want to talk about some of the unsung heroes in this game. NC State's gotten a lot of love from the national awards in terms of players of the week, coaches of the week. Dave Doran won a few coach of the week awards. Duke Scott with a few Player of the Week awards and Freshman of the Week awards. CJ Bailey with some Passer of the Week awards, and Teague Anderson came away with the Offensive Lineman of the Week award for the ACC. So some serious love from those groups for those people. Kurt Roper also won CBS Sports' Assistant Coach of the Week for the ACC. So a lot of love for this NC State team that really stunned the college football world. But I want to point out a few players who did what they needed to do and had a massive effect on this win, a larger effect than I think a lot of people will give them credit for, and really just kind of push the Wolfpack in the direction of a win here. And I'll start with the kicking game. NC State had not even attempted a field goal or made one in several weeks. It had been a really long time. And Kanoa Vincent stepped up in the second half when NC State just needed to put points on the board, and he drilled two field goals from 35 plus. Actually, just one from 35 plus. The other one was from 37, or the other one was from 34. So basically 35 plus. But um, this NC State team really needed somebody to go out there and add points in those opportunities. They got a field goal at the end of the half. That was a nice bonus. And then, of course, got a late field goal in the fourth quarter to maintain that two possession lead that the Wolfpack held for so much of this game. And Vincent didn't make any mistakes, and that was such a big issue for this team was every phase seemed to make a mistake during this 4 out of 5 losses stretch entering this game. And, special teams was not a area that was immune to making those mistakes. So to have the kicking game, which was such an issue early in the year, come out, drill two field goals, massive win. And I just think Vincent earned some respect from the fan base, from the coaching staff, and certainly has the trust of his head coach moving forward in situations like that. Noah Rogers, the wide receiver, had to step up in the absence of the team's best pass catcher, Justin Jolie, the tight end, who was ruled out. We found out a little bit earlier in the week than the injury report or the availability report might have indicated. But I think I'm sure Jolie was trying to rehab his way into playing, but it sounds like NC State was operating under the assumption that these guys, both Jolie and Smothers, were not going to be good to go in this game, and they prepared that way. And guys like Duke Scott, obviously, with 196 rushing yards, were able to fill that void and replace those guys. But the tight end room was really valuable, and I think those guys certainly got their flowers. But Rodgers, who had 7 catches for 72 yards, kind of flew under the radar. And I think part of that was because he didn't catch a touchdown. But what he did do is convert on 4 first downs, convert his receptions into 4 first downs, which in this game where NC State it was really important that they kept control of possession and didn't allow this Georgia Tech offense to really ever get going and have a chance to play from ahead or from within one score. And Rodgers averaging 10.3 yards per catch helped this offense stay on the field constantly. And he finished with 7 receptions for 72 yards and showed that he could be the number one pass catcher on this team. And again, as I've said all season long, this team is so deep at receiver, They can go to any of these guys, and clearly Rodgers was the guy on Saturday. Obviously, didn't score, but Teddy Hoffman had the lone reception for a touchdown from the receiver group, and Cody Hardy had his nice little touchdown reception in the end zone. But I just feel like Rodgers, because he didn't score, kind of got overlooked in the post game discussion when he was so essential on some of these plays where NC State really needed a first down, needed to keep the ball, to keep killing that clock and maintain that two possession cushion that ended up being the difference. Then I think the offensive line got some flowers with T. Anderson, but I think center Jalen Grant's impact has been overlooked all season, and especially the last 3 weeks with the injuries that the guard spot has had to deal with. Anthony Carter Jr. has now been out for a few games. He got hurt against Notre Dame, I believe, and then missed the Pitt game. Um, and now on the opposite side, on the right side, Spike Souls has been out for 2 games now. He missed the Pitt game and after dealing with an injury in the Notre Dame game, and he was really starting to come on as this one of this team's strongest offensive linemen. So now Grant has obviously the tackles are there and Anderson and Peak, but Grant's had to sort of operate on the inside of the interior line with guys who don't have a ton of experience, and he kind of downplayed it over the course of the week. You know, they all practice together, they know each other's tendencies, but just the wherewithal by Grant, a veteran who played for a team that really struggled last year in Purdue, for him to be able to really not miss a beat with these two guards, Rico Jackson and Kamen Smith, who've had to fill in and help this NC State team have maybe its best run blocking game of the season for Duke Scott. And you know, they blocked for 196 yards. A lot of that went to the right side towards Anderson, who came up with that award, and Grant did pick up a holding penalty on a CJ Bailey scramble, but for him to be able to communicate with these guys who don't play frequently, they weren't regular starters, and to have them executing and firing on all cylinders was really unbelievable. This group only had the one penalty, which was Grant himself, and the other penalties were on the tight ends or other aspects of the offense. So this group held it together. They put together one of their best performances of the year, as I said, and Grant was a major part of that. And Anderson certainly gave him his flowers when he talked after Wednesday's practice, saying that, you know, while he got the award, as always, the offensive line doesn't really get noticed a whole lot. And he said he couldn't have done it without Grant's ability to communicate on the line. So flowers to Jalen Grant for his performance. And then we finish up with a guy who his I think part of it is he's been so good throughout the entire season and he's gotten so much praise for what he's done. But in this game, he made one tackle that I think really didn't it won't show up on the stat sheet, but in terms of momentum, it was such a massive swing in the game to me. And this is Jack linebacker Kean Sloan, who flew around the field, finished with one of the highest defensive PFF scores on the team. But he made one tackle late in the game. I want to say third quarter, could be fourth quarter. I don't remember off the top of my head here, but he came up with a big leg tackle. Haynes King looked like he was about to take off for one of those big runs that he had already had a few of. And Sloan kind of came out of nowhere after pressuring him and just wrapped him up by the legs and brought him down for a short gain. And Georgia Tech wasn't able to convert. And I think they were driving, and it just felt like okay, NC State couldn't score on the last drive or kicked a field goal or something. And I felt like if Georgia Tech had gone down and scored in that moment, it was not it was not going to be the same game with NC State kind of running in front, and it was going to be a very tight matchup to the bitter end there. And Sloan just killed the momentum with that one tackle, that one simple tackle, and it was enough to get it done. And he was phenomenal throughout the entire game, finished with 5 tackles and a sack. I believe he's credited with a sack on PFF. I believe it's a half a sack in the official scorebook, just based on how PFF does things. He did not miss a single tackle in the game, came up with 3 stops in the game. Didn't have to do a lot of pass coverage, which I think is an area where he hasn't been great, but he's been effective enough, and he was really able to tee off as sort of an extra edge rusher, mainly because of how much Georgia Tech likes to run the ball, and then also they like to do kind of short inter to intermediate passing games rather than deep balls, but. Those are my 4 unsung heroes from NC State's upset win over Georgia Tech. NC State's now in the bye week, so we'll keep coming at you with stuff about this game. I know the team has moved on. They're starting to get ready for this Miami matchup in a week. But obviously, this was a pivotal moment in the season for NC State, and they are now 1 game away from bowl eligibility with a win. And that could come in the last 3 weeks for certain. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to those games. But a bowl does not look out of reach as it did a few weeks ago. So we'll keep the Wolfpack football coverage coming your way. As always, you can find more content on my social media at Senate Tucker on X. You can find daily episodes of the NC State Insider podcast on the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. You can get my coverage of NC State and all of our other college coverage right there. Great stuff coming from the other writers. And I hope you check it out. As always, thanks for kicking it with me and listening to me talk about the Wolfpack. We'll see you next time.